Introduction: the heart of innovation. When you hear the word creativity, what do you think of next? If you are like many people, your mind immediately leaps to artistic endeavors like sculpture, drawing, music, or dance. You may equate creative with artistic. You may believe that architects and designers are paid to be creative thinkers, but CEOs, lawyers, and doctors are not. Or you may feel that being creative is a fixed trait, like having brown eyes. Either you're born with creative genes, or you're not. As brothers who have worked together for 30 years at the forefront of innovation, we have come to see this set of misconceptions as the creativity myth. It is a myth that far too many people share. This book is about the opposite of that myth. It is about what we call creative confidence, and at its foundation is the belief that we are all creative. The truth is, we all have far more creative potential waiting to be tapped. We've helped thousands of companies bring breakthrough ideas to market, from Apple's first computer mouse to next-generation surgical tools for Medtronic to fresh brand strategies for the North Face in China. And we've also seen that our methods can produce a new creative mindset in people that can dramatically enhance their lives. Whether they work in the fields of medicine, law, business, education, or science. Over the past 3 decades, we've helped countless individuals nurture their creativity and put it to valuable use. They've created housing optimized for the needs of servicemen and women returning from war zones. They've set up an ad hoc innovation team in a corporate hallway, generating so much energy and noise that the company gave them a dedicated project space. They've developed a low-cost system for screening and fitting hearing aids among elderly villagers in developing countries, providing benefit to some of the 360 million people in the world who suffer from disabling hearing loss. The people we've helped have many backgrounds but share one common trait: they all have gained creative confidence. At its core, creative confidence is about believing in your ability to create change in the world around you. It is the conviction that you can achieve what you set out to do. We think this self-assurance, this belief in your creative capacity, lies at the heart of innovation. Belief in your creative capacity lies at the heart of innovation. Creative confidence is like a muscle. It can be strengthened and nurtured through effort and experience. Our goal is to help build that confidence in you. Whether you think of yourself as the creative type or not, we believe reading this book will help you unlock and draw on more of the creative potential that is within us all. Creativity is much broader and more universal than what people typically consider the artistic fields. We think of creativity as using your imagination to create something new in the world. Creativity comes into play wherever you have the opportunity to generate new ideas, solutions, or approaches, and we believe everyone should have access to that resource. For much of the 20th century, the so-called creative types, designers, art directors, copywriters, were relegated to the kids' table, far from serious discussions. Meanwhile, all the important business conversations took place among the grown-ups in boardrooms and meeting spaces down the hall. But the creative endeavors that seemed fanciful or extracurricular a decade ago have now gone mainstream. Education thought leader Sir Ken Robinson, whose riveting 2006 TED Talk asking "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" was the most popular in history, says that creativity is as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. In the business world, creativity manifests itself as innovation. Tech stars such as Google, Facebook, and Twitter have unleashed their employees' creativity to change the lives of billions of people. Today, in every department, from customer service to finance, people have opportunities to experiment with new solutions. Companies desperately need employees' insights from across the organization. No individual executive or division holds a monopoly on new ideas. Whether you live in Silicon Valley or Shanghai, Munich or Mumbai, you've already felt the effects of seismic market shifts. Most businesses today realize that the key to growth, and even survival, is innovation. One recent IBM survey of more than 1,500 CEOs reports that creativity is the single most important leadership competency for enterprises facing the complexity of global commerce today. An Adobe Systems poll of 5,000 people on 3 continents reports that 80% of people see unlocking creative potential as key to economic growth. Yet only 25% of these individuals feel that they're living up to their creative potential in their own lives and careers. That's a lot of wasted talent. How might we shift that balance? How might we help the other 75% unleash their creative potential? In 2005, David founded the D School to teach design thinking, a methodology for innovating routinely, to future entrepreneurs from Stanford's graduate schools. Originally, we thought that the primary challenge would be to teach creativity to people who saw themselves as analytical types. We soon realized that all of the individuals we worked with already had creativity in spades. Our job was simply to help them recapture it by sharing new skills and mindsets. We have been stunned at how quickly people's imagination, curiosity, and courage are renewed with just a small amount of practice and encouragement. For the people we've worked with, opening up the flow of creativity is like discovering that you've been driving a car with the emergency brake on, and suddenly experiencing what it feels like when you release the brake and can drive freely. We see this a lot with executives during workshops, or when we have clients in to collaborate side by side with us. They've sat through seminars about innovation before, and they are convinced they know how creative, or how uncreative, they're going to be. So when we get to a point that's fuzzy or unconventional, like doing an improv exercise, suddenly they whip out their smartphones, heading for the exits to make really important phone calls. Why? Because they are insecure about their abilities in that setting. They instinctively fall back on the defense that I'm just not the creative type. In our experience, everybody is the creative type. We know that if we can get individuals to stick with the methodology a while, they will end up doing amazing things. They come up with breakthrough ideas or suggestions and work creatively with a team to develop something truly innovative. They surprise themselves with the realization that they are a lot more creative than they had thought. That early success shakes up how they see themselves and makes them eager to do more. What we've found is that we don't have to generate creativity from scratch. We just need to help people rediscover what they already have, the capacity to imagine, or build upon, new-to-the-world ideas. But the real value of creativity doesn't emerge until you are brave enough to act on those ideas. That combination of thought and action defines creative confidence, the ability to come up with new ideas and the courage to try them out. Thupten Jinpa, who has been the Dalai Lama's chief English translator for more than 20 years, shared an insight with us recently about the nature of creativity. Jinpa pointed out that there's no word in the Tibetan language for creativity, or being creative. The closest translation is natural. In other words, if you want to be more creative, you just have to be more natural. We forget that back in kindergarten, we were all creative. We all played and experimented and tried out weird things without fear or shame. We didn't know enough not to. The fear of social rejection is something we learned as we got older, and that's why it's possible to regain our creative abilities so swiftly and powerfully, even decades later. It turns out that creativity isn't some rare gift to be enjoyed by the lucky few. It's a natural part of human thinking and behavior. In too many of us it gets blocked, but it can be unblocked, and unblocking that creative spark can have far-reaching implications for yourself, your organization, and your community. We believe that our creative energy is one of our most precious resources. It can help us to find innovative solutions to some of our most intractable problems. Creative confidence in action. Creative confidence is a way of experiencing the world that generates new approaches and solutions. We know that anyone can gain creative confidence. We have witnessed it in people from diverse backgrounds and careers. Everyone, from scientists in their labs to senior managers at Fortune 500 companies, can approach life differently, with a new outlook and a larger tool set. Here are a few examples of people who have embraced creative confidence. Creative energy is one of our most precious resources. A former Olympian entered the airline industry and developed the confidence to tackle her company's crisis management problems head-on. She gathered a volunteer task force of pilots, dispatchers, crew schedulers, and others to prototype procedures following weather-related flight disruptions, leading to a 40% faster recovery time. An Army captain who served in Iraq and Afghanistan rallied over 1,700 people to petition for a pedestrian mall in the local community, proving you don't have to be a general to have an impact. Going beyond just the raw facts of a case, a law school student took a human-centered approach to her mock trial. She had the jury picture themselves at the scene of the incident to imagine what it felt like, and through harnessing their empathy, she won, the first time a jury had ever favored her side of that particular case. A former government executive started a grassroots innovation movement in Washington, D.C. that has grown to over 1,000 members. Through workshops and networking events, she is spreading her new perspective on organizational change to other leaders and aspiring entrepreneurs. After 4 decades of experience, an elementary school teacher restructured her curriculum into design challenges. Instead of teaching discrete subjects, she created projects that covered the same topics but got students to step away from their desks and think more critically. Their test scores improved, but more important, parents noticed their children were more engaged and inquisitive. You don't have to switch careers or move to Silicon Valley to change your mindset. You don't have to become a design consultant or quit your job. The world needs more creative policy makers, office managers, and real estate agents. Whatever your profession, when you approach it with creativity, you'll come up with new and better solutions and more successes. Creative confidence can inspire whatever work you already do, because you gain a new tool to enhance your problem-solving practices without having to abandon any of your existing techniques. You don't have to switch careers or move to Silicon Valley to change your mindset. We've talked to doctors who have found new ways to empathize with and more effectively treat their patients, looking beyond the surface symptoms. We've talked to executive recruiters who use our methods to find new matchups between talented people, and the companies that need them most. We've talked to social workers who use human-centered approaches to help people in the community understand confusing application forms. People with creative confidence have a greater impact on the world around them, whether that means getting involved with their child's school, turning a storage room into a vibrant innovation space, or harnessing social media to recruit more bone marrow donors. As legendary psychologist and Stanford professor Albert Bandura has shown, our belief systems affect our actions, goals, and perception. Individuals who come to believe that they can affect change are more likely to accomplish what they set out to do. Bandura calls that conviction self-efficacy. People with self-efficacy set their sights higher, try harder, persevere longer, and show more resilience in the face of failure. Our practical experience in the world of innovation and creative confidence aligns closely with his findings. When people transcend the fears that block their creativity, all sorts of new possibilities emerge. Instead of being paralyzed by the prospect of failure, they see every experience as an opportunity they can learn from. The need for control keeps some people stuck at the planning stage of a project. With creative confidence, they become comfortable with uncertainty and are able to leap into action, instead of resigning themselves to the status quo or what others have told them to do. They are free to speak their mind and challenge existing ways of doing things. They act with greater courage and have more persistence in tackling obstacles. We believe this book will help you overcome the mental blocks that hold back your creativity. Chapter by chapter, we will give you tools that empower you to pursue new ideas with confidence. The stories, methods, and practices that we will share draw on decades of collaboration with creative thinkers everywhere, and we believe they will help you too. The Creative Confidence Quest today. Our mission as authors is to help as many people as possible rediscover their creative potential. Confronted with their newfound creativity, people sometimes confide in us that their mother was a dancer, or their father was an architect. They seem to be rationalizing their spark of creative energy, as if they are searching for concrete evidence. What they don't realize is that their creative potential was always a part of them, not because of any family history or genetic predisposition, but because it is a natural human ability within us all. Creative confidence is a way of seeing that potential and your place in the world more clearly, unclouded by anxiety and doubt. We hope you'll join us on our quest to embrace creative confidence in our lives. Together, we can all make the world a better place. Chapter 1: Flip from design thinking to creative confidence. Doug Dietz is an earnest, soft-spoken Midwesterner with a wry, endearing smile and eyes that are quick to well up with tears at an emotional moment. A 24-year veteran of General Electric, Doug helps lead design and development of high-tech medical imaging systems for GE Healthcare, an $18 billion division of one of the largest companies in the world. His multimillion-dollar magnetic resonance imaging systems peer painlessly inside the human body in ways that would have been considered magic just a generation ago. A few years back, Doug wrapped up a project on an MRI machine that he had spent 2.5 years working on. When he got the opportunity to see it installed in a hospital's scanning suite, he jumped at the chance. Standing next to his new machine, Doug talked with the technician who was operating it that day. He told her that the MRI scanner had been submitted for an International Design Excellence Award, the Oscars of Design, and asked her how she liked its new features. It was a perfect example of bad interviewing technique, Doug says abashedly. Doug was prepared to come away patting himself on the back for a job well done. But then the technician asked him to step out into the hall for a moment because a patient needed to get a scan. When he did, he saw a frail young girl walking toward him, tightly holding her parents' hands. The parents looked worried, and their young daughter was clearly scared, all in anticipation of what lay ahead. Doug's MRI machine. The girl started to sniffle, and Doug himself got choked up telling us her story. As the family passed by, Doug could hear their hushed conversation. "We've talked about this. You can be brave," urged the dad, the strain showing in his own voice. As Doug watched, the little girl's tears rolled down her cheeks. To Doug's alarm, the technician picked up the phone to call for an anesthesiologist. And that was when Doug learned that hospitals routinely sedate pediatric patients for their scans because they are so scared that they can't lie still long enough. As many as 80% of pediatric patients have to be sedated, and if an anesthesiologist isn't available, the scan has to be postponed, causing families to go through their cycle of worry all over again. When Doug witnessed the anxiety and fear his machine caused among the most vulnerable patients, the experience triggered a personal crisis for him that forever changed his perspective. Rather than an elegant, sleek piece of technology, worthy of accolades and admiration, he now saw that, through the eyes of a young child, the MRI looked more like a big scary machine you have to go inside. Pride in his design was replaced with feelings of failure for letting down the very patients he was trying to help. Doug could have quit his job, or simply resigned himself to the situation and moved on. But he didn't. He returned home and told his wife that he had to make a change. So Doug sought advice on this deep personal and professional challenge from friends and colleagues. His boss at G, who had encountered Stanford's D school while at Procter & Gamble, suggested he try out an executive education class. Searching for a fresh perspective and a different approach to his work, Doug flew to California for a week-long workshop. He didn't know quite what to expect, but he was eager to embrace any new methodology that would help him in his quest to make MRIs less frightening for young children. The workshop offered Doug new tools that ignited his creative confidence. He learned about a human-centered approach to design and innovation. He observed and talked to users of existing products and services to better understand consumer needs. He collaborated with managers from other companies and industries on crude prototypes of designs to meet those needs. Gaining new perspectives from them, he continued to experiment and iterate his concepts in class, building on the ideas of others. At the end of the week, the cross-pollination of ideas made him feel more creative and more hopeful than he had when he left home. Going through the human-centered design process with people in diverse industries and roles, from management to human resources to finance, struck a chord in him. I started to imagine how powerful this tool could be if I brought it back and got cross-functional teams to work together. By applying human-centered design methods in his own work, Doug believed he could come up with a better solution for children. And he was determined to make it happen. He returned to Milwaukee knowing what he wanted to do. Without significant resources, funding, or support from his own company, Doug knew he couldn't launch a big R&D project to redesign an MRI machine from scratch, so he focused on redesigning the experience. He started by observing and gaining empathy for young children at a daycare center. He talked to child life specialists to understand what pediatric patients went through. He reached out for help from people around him, including a small volunteer team from G, experts from a local children's museum, and doctors and staff from 2 hospitals. Next, he created the first prototype of what would become the Adventure Series scanner and was able to get it installed as a pilot program in the Children's Hospital at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. By thinking holistically about how children experienced and interacted with the technology, Doug helped transform the MRI suite into a kid's adventure story, with the patient in a starring role. Making no changes to the complex technology inside the scanner, Doug and his ad hoc team applied colorful decals to the outside of the machine and to every surface in the room, covering the floor, ceilings, walls, and all of the equipment. They also created a script for machine operators so they could lead their young patients through the adventure. One of the prototypes is a pirate ship worthy of an amusement park ride. The ship comes complete with a big wooden captain's wheel that surrounds the round opening of the chamber, a seafaring detail that also makes the small circumference seem less claustrophobic. The operator tells kids that they will be sailing inside the pirate ship and they have to stay completely still while on the boat. After their voyage, they get to pick a small treasure from the pirate's chest on the other side of the room. In another story, the MRI is a cylindrical spaceship transporting the patient into a space adventure. Just before the whirring and banging of the machine gets louder, the operator encourages young patients to listen closely for the moment that the craft shifts into hyperdrive. This reframing transforms a normally terrifying boom 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 sound into just another part of the adventure. Including the pirate experience and the rocket ship, there are now 9 different adventures. With Doug's new MRI redesign for kids, the number of pediatric patients needing to be sedated was reduced dramatically. The hospital and G were happy too because less need for anesthesiologists meant more patients could get scanned each day. Meanwhile, patient satisfaction scores went up 90%. But the biggest satisfaction for Doug lies not in the numbers, nor in G Healthcare's improved bottom line. His greatest reward came while talking with a mother whose 6-year-old daughter had just been scanned in the MRI pirate ship. The little girl came over and tugged on her mother's skirt. "Mommy," she asked, "can we come back tomorrow?" That simple question made all his effort worthwhile. Less than a year after his epiphany, Doug's increased creative confidence catapulted him into a new role as a thought leader at G. Would it be an exaggeration to say that, in the process, Doug also helped change the world a bit? Ask one of those young patients or their parents. They already have the answer. A creative mindset can be a powerful force for looking beyond the status quo. People who use the creative techniques we outline are better able to apply their imagination to painting a picture of the future. They believe they have the ability to improve on existing ideas and positively impact the world around them, whether at work or in their personal lives. Without that belief, Doug wouldn't have been able to take the first step toward his goal. Creative confidence is an inherently optimistic way of looking at what's possible. Doug's story illustrates the way human-centered design can lead to breakthrough innovations. New opportunities for innovation open up when you start the creative problem-solving process with empathy toward your target audience, whether it's kids or colleagues, clients or consumers. While competitors focused on the never-ending battle surrounding technical specification, Doug found a whole new way to improve the lives of patients and their families. In our experience, approaching challenges from a human perspective can yield some of the richest opportunities for change. In every innovation program we have been involved with, there are always three factors to balance, represented by the three overlapping circles in the diagram below. The first has to do with technical factors, or feasibility. In the early days of our work in Silicon Valley, this is where our clients always started. We've had clients present us with literally thousands of new technologies, from clever new wheel hubs for bicycles to new ways of chilling the human brain from the inside. A new technology, if it truly works, can be extremely valuable and can provide the basis for a successful new company or a new line of business. Carbon fiber aircraft components, multi-touch interactive displays, and minimally invasive surgical tools all revolutionize their industries. But cool technology alone is not enough. If it were, we'd all be riding segways and playing with robotic dogs. The second key element is economic viability, or what we sometimes refer to as business factors. Not only does the technology need to work, but it also needs to be produced and distributed in an economically viable way. It needs to fit into a business model that will allow the enterprise to thrive. When we were growing up in the 1950s, Popular Science magazine suggested that 21st century families would have their own personal helicopter in the backyard. So far, no one has come up with a clever business model to make helicopters affordable for ordinary people. The business factors on that concept just never lined up, and maybe never will. Even in nonprofit organizations, business factors can be critical. If you want to launch a program to increase the availability of safe drinking water in India or to build sanitation systems in Ghana, you need to find a way for it to pay for and sustain itself in the long run. Cool technology alone is not enough. If it were, we'd all be riding segways and playing with robotic dogs. The third element involves people, and is sometimes referred to as human factors. It's about deeply understanding human needs. Beyond just observing behaviors, this third aspect of successful innovation programs is about getting at people's motivation and core beliefs. Human factors aren't necessarily more important than the other two, but technical factors are well taught in science and engineering programs around the world, and companies everywhere focus energy on the business factors. So we believe that human factors may offer some of the best opportunities for innovation, which is why we always start there. And Doug did too, because G's MRI machines already had great technology and business viability. Doug worked to understand how young children perceive MRI machines and what makes them feel safe when introduced to a new experience. Doug's empathy for his young patients led him to a breakthrough idea and ultimately assured his product's success. Being human-centered is at the core of our innovation process. Deep empathy for people makes our observations powerful sources of inspiration. We aim to understand why people do what they currently do, with the goal of understanding what they might do in the future. Our first-person experiences help us form personal connections with the people for whom we're innovating. We've washed other people's clothes by hand in their sinks, stayed as guests in housing projects, stood beside surgeons in operating rooms, and calmed agitated passengers in airport security lines, all to build empathy. An empathic approach fuels our process by ensuring we never forget we're designing for real people, and as a result, we uncover insights and opportunities for truly creative solutions. We've collaborated with thousands of clients to leverage the power of empathy, creating everything from easy-to-use life-saving heart defibrillators to debit cards that help customers save for retirement. We believe successful innovations rely on some element of human-centered design research while balancing the two other elements, seeking that sweet spot of feasibility, viability, and desirability as you take into account the real needs and desires of your customers is part of what we at IDEO and the D School call design thinking. It's our process for creativity and innovation. There's no one-size-fits-all methodology for bringing new ideas to life, but many successful programs include a variation on 4 steps: inspiration, synthesis, ideation, experimentation, and implementation. In our experience, an innovation or new idea may cycle through many iterations before the process is complete. Design-driven innovation. Here's an overview of our approach to innovation. As described by IDEO partner Chris Flink, we adapt and evolve our methodologies continuously, so please feel free to make your own variations as well. Fashioning innovation techniques that fit your unique circumstances. 1. Inspiration. Don't wait for the proverbial apple to fall on your head. Go out in the world and proactively seek experiences that will spark creative thinking. Interact with experts, immerse yourself in unfamiliar environments, and role-play customer scenarios. Inspiration is fueled by a deliberate, planned course of action. To inspire human-centered innovation, empathy is our reliable, go-to resource. We find that connecting with the needs, desires, and motivations of real people helps to inspire and provoke fresh ideas. Observing people's behavior in their natural context can help us better understand the factors at play and trigger new insights to fuel our innovation efforts. We shadow and do interviews with a variety of people out in the field. We speak to extreme users, for example, discovering how early adopters make clever use of technology, or if we are redesigning a kitchen tool like a can opener. We may observe how elderly people use it to look for points of frustration or opportunities for improvement. We look to other industries to see how relevant challenges are addressed. For instance, we may draw parallels between customer service at a restaurant and the patient experience at a hospital in order to improve patient satisfaction. 2. Synthesis. After your time in the field, the next step is to begin the complex challenge of sense-making. You need to recognize patterns, identify themes, and find meaning in all that you've seen, gathered, and observed. We move from concrete observations and individual stories to more abstract truths that span across groups of people. We often organize our observations on an empathy map or create a matrix to categorize types of solutions. During synthesis, we strive to see where the fertile ground is. We translate what we've uncovered in our research into actionable frameworks and principles. We reframe the problem and choose where to focus our energy. For example, in retail environments, we've discovered that if you change the question from how might we reduce customer waiting time to how might we reduce perceived waiting time, it opens up whole new avenues of possibility, like using a video display wall to provide an entertaining distraction. 3. Ideation and experimentation. Next, we set off on an exploration of new possibilities. We generate countless ideas and consider many divergent options. The most promising ones are advanced and iterative rounds of rapid prototypes, early, rough representations of ideas that are concrete enough for people to react to. The key is to be quick and dirty, exploring a range of ideas without becoming too invested in only one. These experiential learning loops help to develop existing concepts and spur new ones, based on feedback from end users and other stakeholders. We adapt, iterate, and pivot our way to human-centered, compelling, workable solutions. Experimentation can include everything from crafting hundreds of physical models for delivering transdermal vaccines to using driving simulators for testing new vehicle systems to acting out the check-in experience at a hotel lobby. 4. Implementation. Before a new idea is rolled out, we refine the design and prepare a roadmap to the marketplace. Of course, rollouts can vary wildly depending on which elements of an experience or product are involved. Going live with a new online learning platform is very different from offering a new banking service. The implementation phase can have many rounds. More and more companies in every industry are beginning to launch new products, services, or businesses in order to learn. They live in beta and quickly iterate through new in-market loops that further refine their offering. For example, some retailers launch pop-up stores as a way to test demand in new cities. And Boston-based startup Clover Food Lab began with a single food truck at MIT to gauge the market for its sustainable vegetarian food before the company committed to opening brick-and-mortar restaurant locations. Innovating routinely with design thinking. Design thinking is a way of finding human needs and creating new solutions using the tools and mindsets of design practitioners. When we use the term design alone, most people ask what we think about their curtains or where we bought our glasses. But a design thinking approach means more than just paying attention to aesthetics or developing physical products. Design thinking is a methodology. Using it, we can address a wide variety of personal, social, and business challenges in creative new ways. Design thinking relies on the natural and coachable human ability to be intuitive, to recognize patterns, and to construct ideas that are emotionally meaningful as well as functional. We're not suggesting that anyone base a career or run an organization solely on feeling, intuition, and inspiration, but an over-reliance on the rational and the analytical can be just as risky. If you have a problem that you can't analyze easily, or that doesn't have a metric or enough data to draw upon, design thinking may be able to help you move forward using empathy and prototyping. When you need to achieve a breakthrough innovation or make a creative leap, this methodology can help you dive into the problem and find new insights. IDEO uses this kind of thinking to help organizations in the public and private sectors innovate and grow. We help clients envision what their new or existing operations might look like in the future and build roadmaps for getting there. Beyond the product development work Tom described in The Art of Innovation, we now have the opportunity to create new companies and brands, working with clients all over the world to help them launch new products, services, spaces, and interactive experiences. While we continue to work on products from toys to ATM machines, these days we are just as likely to create a digital toolkit to help consumers sign up for healthcare insurance or design a better education system for the country of Peru. In the last several years, We have worked directly with clients to help them embed innovation into the fabric of their enterprises, both at IDEO and in our client organizations. We've found that design thinking helps to foster creative cultures and build the internal systems required to sustain innovation and launch new ventures. Born to Flip, the birth of the D. School. In the early 2000s, David started experimenting with team teaching at Stanford with professors from other parts of the university. Prior to that, David had taught only students in the design division at the School of Engineering who already identified themselves as creative. In these new interdisciplinary courses, however, he worked with MBAs and computer science students who often didn't think of themselves that way. It was in these classrooms that David and his colleagues could see what unlocking creativity really looked like. Some of the students went beyond just using the tools and embraced the philosophy of design thinking. And in doing so, they developed a new mental outlook, a new self-image, and a new sense of empowerment. Students began visiting him during office hours, sometimes months after the class was over, to tell him that they had started to see themselves as creative individuals for the first time, that they could apply creativity to any challenge. Their eyes would light up with excitement, with a sense of opportunity, of possibility. Sometimes they cried. David came up with a name for the transformation he was observing: flipping, changing from one state of mind to another. The playfulness of the term flipping reminded him of the joyful poetry of a somersault on a trampoline or a diving board. These students he talked with were engaged and excited in a way that made it clear something in them had changed permanently. It was the sort of profound impact educators live for. Along with former student George Kemble, David began to talk with friends and colleagues about starting a new program. He envisioned a place in the university where students from different backgrounds could come to nurture their creative talents and apply their newfound skills to tough challenges. David pointed out that Stanford, like all world-class universities, had Nobel laureate quality researchers drilling deeper into their own fields of knowledge. But he suggested that there are tremendous challenges in the 21st century that aren't going to be solved that way. Maybe some solutions will be found by putting that scientist into a room with a business person, and a lawyer, and an engineer, and others. Rather than keeping all their eggs in the going deep basket, David proposed that Stanford make at least a small side bet on going broad. And one day the new institute might have the respect and the cachet of the Graduate School of Business, commonly known as the B School. That's how the new venture got its nickname, which has stuck ever since: the D School. When he told Hasso Plattner, one of the founders of enterprise software giant SAP, about the idea, Hasso generously reached for his checkbook. The D School, officially known as the Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design, opened its doors in 2005, nurturing creative thinkers while IDEO's work historically focused on innovations. From the beginning, the Stanford D School has focused on innovators. Students from every graduate school at Stanford come to take classes at the D School. It doesn't issue degrees and doesn't have any required courses. Everyone is there because they want to be. Currently, more than 700 students attend courses at the D School each year. Project-based classes are team-taught by faculty members from all over the university and by industry practitioners. In this diverse environment, it's normal to hear many points of view, often conflicting ones. Students learn by doing and tackle real-world challenges, usually in multidisciplinary teams. Beyond just graduate students, executives from all over the world attend workshops, and the K-12 lab works with children and educators to help spread confidence in their creative abilities. Classes often start with simple design briefs, succinct articulations of a challenge, like redesign the experience of getting your morning coffee. When confronted with a question or a problem such as the morning coffee challenge, people with strong analytical skills tend to snap instantly into problem-solving mode. They leap for the finish line and then start defending their answers. For example, think about how quickly a skilled doctor, when presented with a set of symptoms, makes a diagnosis and prescribes a solution. Often it's a matter of seconds. During one morning coffee challenge a few years back, a med school student in the class immediately raised a hand and said, "I know what we need, a new kind of coffee creamer." For such skilled analytical thinkers, an unresolved issue hanging in the air is uncomfortable. They are anxious to provide an answer and move on. In routine problem-solving situations, where there is a single right answer, that method is very efficient, and sometimes quite appropriate. Creative thinkers, however, confronted with the same open-ended question, are careful not to rush to judgment. They recognize that there are many possible solutions and are willing to go wide first, identifying a number of possible approaches before converging on the ideas most worth implementing. So David and the D School professors ask the students to set aside their initial answers, the cliché ones already in their heads. They encourage students to dig deeper, to understand the situation better, observing people's behaviors around coffee drinking in order to identify latent needs and opportunities. After the group has been guided through the design process in a collaborative environment, dozens of ideas emerge, everything from a coffee pot that knows exactly how hot you like your drink and delivers it that way every time, to an automatic stir you drop into your cup. And professors ask class members if any of the new solutions they arrived at were better than their initial ones. Usually, the answer is yes. One prerequisite for achieving creative confidence is the belief that your innovation skills and capabilities are not set in stone. A growth state of mind. One prerequisite for achieving creative confidence is the belief that your innovation skills and capabilities are not set in stone. If you currently feel that you are not a creative person, if you think, "I'm not good at that kind of thing," you have to let go of that belief before you can move on. You have to believe that learning and growth are possible. In other words, you need to start with what Stanford psychology professor Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. Individuals with a growth mindset, Dweck says, believe that a person's true potential is unknown, that it's impossible to foresee what can be accomplished with years of passion, toil, and training. She makes a compelling case, backed up by extensive research, that regardless of our initial talent, aptitude, or even IQ, we can expand our capabilities through effort and experience. To fully appreciate the growth mindset, it helps to contrast it with its all-too-familiar evil twin, the fixed mindset. Consciously or unconsciously, people with a fixed mindset have the deep-seated belief that everyone is born with only a certain amount of intelligence and a certain amount of talent. If invited on a journey to creative confidence, people with a fixed mindset will prefer to stay behind in their comfort zone, afraid that the limits of their capabilities will be revealed to others.